Good afternoon, Kennesaw State, and welcome to the inaugural edition of the Owl Hour Sports Show here on student-run Owl Radio. On this show, we will be covering an assortment of topics, including sports here at KSU, as well as news from Atlanta and beyond. I'm joined in the booth by Henry Higuita, as well as Devon Delarm, and we'll be talking about all sorts of stuff that will hopefully keep all of you entertained. So before we talk about the big elephant in the room, which is the KSU football game from last week against Reinhardt, we're going to talk about some of the other KSU sports that have been going on over the past week or so. So first off, we'll talk about soccer, who has a 2-4 record this season. They lost their first two matches before winning the next two, and then dropped the last two over the past weekend. Volleyball. Pretty strong start to the season at 3-2. They have a very good returning core of Lauren Chastang, Danny Ballou, and Brie Becerra, who are seeking to put the Owls on a path back to dominance. The 2019 Atlantic Southern Conference champions played two matches this past weekend, beating Georgia Southern and UAB. They will also host its first game of the season tonight against Alabama at the Convocation Center. Cross country started up last Friday, with freshman Jack Stansel leading the men's team with a 22nd place finish in the 6K. The Williams brothers, Coy and Mecki, will be the only seniors on this team. On the women's side, Naya Hernandez and Katie Meyer finished a respective 7th and 8th in the 4K race. Former second-team All-Conference athletes Meyer and Sarah Hendrick will lead the way for the women's team this season. So now we can move on to football. Our man Henry covered the game for our sister publication, the Sentinel newspaper, last Thursday in an evening game, and the Owls won 35-25 in a surprisingly close game. But, well, we'll just hear it from the person who was there himself. Henry, how was it?
Yeah, Rio, thank you. It was a great game, a great start to football. It was there was a lot of people there. It was a great atmosphere. Even Coach Bohannon mentioned, he said that's got to be one of the best student sections, since I've been here. And he said, he's been here since the start. So that's saying a lot. The game started off really well. KSU got an early lead, 7-0. Starting quarterback, Jonathan Murphy Jr. He got 98 total all-purpose yards, and he got 2 touchdowns. He was going really well, and then in the third quarter, he sustained what appeared to be a lower leg injury. Coach Bohannon confirmed, it's nothing major, so we might see him on Saturday against the Yellow Jackets. But to finish off the game, sophomore quarterback Xavier Shepard came on, and he did a really good job. He got 60 all-purpose yards of his own, picked up 2 touchdowns, and closed the game off really well. One of the big highlights of the game, of course, was Welton Spotville's interception at the end of the third quarter. Really beautiful, full extension, and a great way to a great memory for the game. That was even on SportsCenter. It was awesome. But just a really good game overall, and I was glad I could be there.
All right, that sounds good. One of the big storylines going into next week's game for KSU against Georgia Tech is that Georgia Tech lost over the weekend to Northern Illinois, which makes for a very interesting dynamic coming into Saturday's game. Well, on one hand, KSU only beat a Division III team by 10 points, but Georgia Tech lost to Northern Illinois. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the game is approached offensively, because the KSU offense, as we know, had over 350 rushing yards again last week against Reinhardt. And to see them, pound the ball over and over against opposing defenses will likely be the exact same tactic they use against Georgia Tech, who has a very similar offense, by the way, to KSU. On the other hand, the defense really needs to put stuff together if they're going to make it a competitive game against this Power 5 school. Because, yes, Georgia Tech may have lost to Northern Illinois, but they are a Power 5 school, so you never want to underestimate the offense there. So, again, a very interesting game for Saturday. But speaking of last week's game, Devon was also there. How was your experience at that game?
That was an experience. I was in the student section, and boy, oh boy, did I have a good time. From chants to yelling at players to just all around a good time. I didn't get to stay the whole time. I missed that sick interception. Dude, that I saw a video of that on Instagram, and I think that about blew my mind. I was very astonished. But overall, that run game was extremely strong. I was extremely shocked to see such a solid run game from our school.
Yep, it's something that has been a specialty of KSU for some time, but it's great to see it continue because there are so many different people that come through the program, and they've all proven to be very competitive. And once again, we're going to see a lot of different players try to become that top running back of many talented running backs that are on that roster. So now we can, for the time being, talk about some other things that are going on here. And we're going to start a little bit by talking about Atlanta United and the very interesting season that they've had. And we'll go to our expert on Atlanta United, Henry. A little bit, what's been going on recently with Atlanta United?
Yeah. So Atlanta United had a very, very shaky start to the season. They lost like 13. Well, they didn't win 13 or 14 games in a row. So that really dropped them in the standings. But ever since they fired Coach Gabriel Heinze, they've been going up. First, it was assistant coach Rob Valentino who took over, grabbed 4 wins against some pretty good teams, and now Gonzalo Pineda has taken the reins. His first game was not last Saturday, but 2 Saturdays ago, against Nashville, big rival of Atlanta United. Unfortunately, the Five Stripes lost 2-0, but they did put up a good number of shots, 10. Unfortunately, only 2 were on target, and none of them went in. Personally, I think some of that's a little bad luck. They really tried, and just sometimes the ball just doesn't go in. They have to watch their defense, and they've got a tough game against Orlando City on Saturday. I say tough not just because Orlando is a tough team, but because they're going to be missing, I know, at least 2, but maybe potentially 4 of their starters. First of all, star striker Joseph Martinez will not be playing because he is with the Venezuelan national team. And so is Ronald Hernandez. They're out in the World Cup qualifiers for CONMEBOL. And George Bayo and Miles Robinson are out with the United States men's national team. Atlanta United doesn't, it's not impossible. The season is not lost. They are only 3 points behind 7th place, which is DC United, and really, that's the line you got to cross. 7th place means a playoff spot and still a chance at potentially winning MLS Cup. So, stay tuned. They've got seven of their last 12 matches are at home, and they tend to do really well at home. So we'll see how it goes. I'm optimistic. I'm excited to see them play this weekend. And,
All right. Well, speaking of the World Cup qualifiers, we had a little bit of a controversial situation happen between Brazil and Argentina in which the game had to be stopped after only 7 minutes. What was that all about?
Yeah, so the match that probably I was most looking forward to this weekend, I was at home and I was getting ready to just watch a huge, the big CONMEBOL rivalry because they're the 2 big teams of South America. And I only ended up watching about 7 minutes of it because at the 7-minute mark, they were interrupted by Brazil health officials who invaded the pitch, and they, were trying to detain 4 of the Argentinian players because they violated COVID protocols. They play in the Premier League, and Brazil has specific laws saying that if you come from the UK, you need to have at least 14 days of quarantine, and they did not have that. So first of all, they went to Brazil without permission from their clubs, which is a big no-no, and obviously violating international law doesn't help either. So the game was stopped. They'll have to play it again at a future date, and it was crazy. Brazil ended up having a training session on the pitch, and I guess I wouldn't want to be one of the people that paid money to go watch 7 minutes of a game. That would suck. But that's the craziness that happened over the weekend.
Yeah, certainly a lot to unpack there, and certainly a lot more that we'll be learn in the following days and weeks about that whole situation is additionally also as how those players are going to continue to play in the Premier League, if any punishments will be handed down in any way, shape, or form. So that remains to be seen. Now we can switch over back to the United States and talk a little bit about stuff going on here in the Atlanta area. And so our man Devon here is our big NFL correspondent. And, of course, the National Football League is starting up this coming weekend for the regular season. Now that the preseason is over and we've seen how a lot of the teams are shaping up, should be an exciting year. But, Devon, let's get your thoughts on what you think about this Atlanta Falcons team.
This Atlanta Falcons team, man. Ooh, this is going to be an interesting season. I think in the past they've definitely had a lot of great teams. They just haven't been able to put it together. And I think this season they came in prepared, ready. They definitely got some people out of free agency, lost some people in free agency too. Nothing we should be too worried about personally. Julio Jones, obviously one of those big names that we lost in free agency, going to the Titans. Wish him the best of luck. But as for now, let's focus on Atlanta. So, we did pick up, actually, Cordell Patterson, one of the best kick returners in the NFL right now. I think he's definitely going to be solid for us, get us those yards, get us a nice field advantage, whether it be home or away. We also picked up Mike Davis, a solid running back from the Carolina Panthers. Been a little bit of a journeyman. Had a great season when Christian McCaffrey was out last season, and he's here to bounce back. I think he's definitely going to hit the ground running, to say. We got a solid O-line. Sadly, big news, we did lose Alex Mack in free agency. Where did he go? He did go to the 49ers. As a Seahawks guy, that does worry me a little bit. All right. But these guys, if they can get this defense together, okay, they may be able to get to the playoffs. Get rid of Tampa Bay. Gosh, Tom Brady does not need another ring. Do not let him go. We don't want to see it again. All right. But I think, hey, if they pull this defense together and Matty Ice plays like he plays every year, this is a solid team. And this is a solid team to get us where we want to go.
Well, speaking of the Panthers, I think earlier you mentioned that was one of your dark horse teams for this year.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Panthers are just an amazing team. Personally, I think they're flying a little under the radar. We've seen what Sam Darnold can do in the past. We've seen him in a bad organization with the Jets under Adam Gase, one of the worst head coaches in history that we've seen. If he can go in and do what he did with the Jets with that, we saw what happened to Ryan Tannehill after he left out of Gase's offense. He popped off in the Titans' offense, and I think the same can happen for Sam Darnold, have another leap year. He's got fantastic people around him with Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Robbie Anderson, as well as a pretty decent O-line. Nothing top tier, nothing low tier either. And I think their defense can really step up to the plate. And I think this division is tough, but I think the Panthers have what it takes to pull it together and get to the playoffs. All right, Falcons fans might not be happy to hear that, but it's my hot take.
Well, that's some interesting stuff because, the NFL is going to be a very interesting in its totality this season. I think there's a lot of room for change. We've seen a lot of the same things over the years, including Tom Brady being so successful, but I think we're going to see a lot of different moving parts this season, a lot of teams that are trying to sort of reforge an identity such, as the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to get back to a level where they can try to become the conference champions, and remains to be seen if they can do the job as well. So in other sports news, we'll talk about the Major League Baseball a little bit. A lot of stuff going on because the playoff season's coming up there. The Atlanta Braves still, to this current hour, are in first place. They have had such a resilient season, a season in which they did struggle early on, but they've really come back together, and they have taken advantage of a couple of other interesting meltdowns by the other teams in the East, but not to take away anything from the Braves. They have truly improved and stuck together through a lot of different trials and tribulations this season. So one of the teams that has done surprisingly poor in that division is the Mets, who were doing well earlier in this season, but it looks like that their season is slipping away right now. 4 games behind the Braves in the East. They have done well in the last week or so, but we really have to see if them and the Phillies can reach the Braves, because the Phillies have done well. Bryce Harper's done a lot better of late, so it is tightening up in that division, but the Braves are still in that first spot, and if they can just get some consistency. They are 4-6 in their last 10, so consistency is something they're going to need in the home stretch. If they can hold on, it will be a huge accomplishment considering some of the issues they had earlier this season. Other news, the Chicago Cubs are on a 7-game winning streak, and they have been very surprising because of some of the underrated players that have shown up after the loss of Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, and Javier Baez. They've had some players step up to the plate and surprise a lot of fans alike, and so that is a team that obviously has struggled a lot, but they'll be coming up soon. So in the West, the National League West, the Giants are still in first place. The Dodgers are just a game behind, and the real disappointing team this year, I think, from what we thought at the beginning of the season, has been San Diego, a team with Tatis and so many talented players. Now, they have had a lot of injuries, but they have struggled a lot and now are 14 and a half games behind. At one point, this was a team favored to win the division, so they probably will likely, have a shot at the wild card. But this is going to be, it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight because them and the Reds are tight in that wild card race right now. So, back to KSU a little bit. We'll talk a little bit deeper into what happened in last week's game and what we can expect for Saturday's matchup with Georgia Tech. So, one of the big statistics from Thursday was how much yardage was given up to Reinhardt, specifically Reinhardt's quarterback, who also happened to be quite good on the ground. So Billy Hall completed 12 of 18 passes for only 90 yards, but had 2 touchdowns in those limited throws. However, he did have 135 rushing yards against the KSU defense, so that will be, and it probably has been for the last several days, the big block of film that the team has been watching to make sure that they can bring it all together and get a cohesive unit and really improve against Georgia Tech, because that's going to be huge if they want to have a chance. But as usual, the rushing offense was on its feet again with 378 total yards. And so if they can really continue that momentum and really continue to become, a very powerful offense, then they will at least give themselves a chance against Georgia Tech. So what are you looking forward to, Henry, for this week's game against Georgia Tech?
I'm looking forward to a couple of things. I'm looking forward to that offense popping off again. I'm looking forward to them fixing some of the defensive mistakes. Coach Bohannon actually, admitted, there were a lot of mistakes there, and it didn't take a genius to see them. You mentioned the 135 yards that Reinhardt Billy Hall got rushing yards. 80 of those yards were from a single play because KSU kicked off. They started at the 20, and then, he found a hole in the defense, and he just went all the way. So some of that stuff you got to look out for. One of the other big plays that happened, closing the fourth quarter, obviously the Owls trying to close out the game. They have to punt the ball, and the snap goes over the kicker's head. And, Reinhardt gets it at the 17-yard line. It was pretty much a touchdown, and it was. So it's some of those mistakes that, they're working on this week, and, I hope we see we don't see as much of that against Georgia Tech because, as you mentioned, they have an offense similar to that of KSU. They're a big team, so, you got to be careful with that. I think we're going to see a better KSU team this week. I just feel like as long as they work on that a little bit, as long as the defense gets a little solid, they weren't bad. They weren't bad. I want to make that clear. It's just a few errors that they have to fix. Nothing major. First game of the season, totally get it. But, they got this.
So for on the quarterback side, was there any mention of Xavier Shepard, playing next week, or if Murphy was going to be able to come back?
I have not heard anything about whether Murphy will come back. He might. They said it wasn't major, but they also might just have him sit this one out, save him for the next game. I'm not sure on that yet, though.
All right. And Devon, are you looking forward to any other KSU sports this season, or anything we should be looking out for?
As far as KSU sports go, man, hey, the football team's looking pretty great, and I want to get out as to many as games as I possibly can, especially this Georgia Tech game, man. Definitely want to check out a lot of the sports. KSU has so many to offer. Definitely get out to as many as I can, from soccer to lacrosse to volleyball. Just want to check them all out. That's all I got to say. Lots going on in the sports world. Cowboys versus Bucks coming up this Thursday. Looking forward to that one. Ready to get the season kicked off. I'll say that much.
Well, let's talk about the Cowboys game. So that's going to be the Thursday night opening game of the NFL season.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any chance for the Cowboys?
Is there any chance for the Cowboys? I watched Hard Knocks. I don't know if you guys actually ended up watching Hard Knocks this year, but it definitely humanizes a lot of the players because you see them as players a lot of the time. And you see that Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott connection through that series on Hard Knocks. And immediately I was kind of blown away, and I was like, well, this is the reason that we're seeing such a great connection when these two are on the field. We saw a lot of Amari Cooper kind of pop off last season, especially when Dak Prescott was starting off. As soon as he got hurt, you saw those numbers kind of drop down, not something we love to see. But I think with Dak Prescott back, it can definitely shoot Amari Cooper's numbers up. CeeDee Lamb, definitely a dark horse to look out for. And I think the Cowboys should have a big advantage in this game. Obviously, Bucks still riding that high from the Super Bowl. How could you not? But maybe come in with a little bit of too big of heads could blow the game, is all I'm going to say.
All right. Well, the NFL, like I said, it's going to be a really interesting season to see who can win which divisions this season. Obviously, the AFC South is going to be very interesting as well, with the Titans and Colts and everyone really being a very interesting team this year. The Jaguars always have something going on. It's always entertaining to see what's going on with the Jaguars as well.
Definitely a solid team are the Jags. What about your contenders? You got any contenders you look forward to seeing in the playoffs eventually, or?
Well, it's going to be very interesting to see how the Browns play this year.
Oh yeah, I can agree with that.
It's going to be. They're always, especially after last season, it's a fun team to watch. It's amazing to say that, but Cleveland being a team to people look forward to watching is always interesting because that team has so many dynamic players on it, and for that team and for that city to be that entertaining is actually very, very good, I think, for the NFL from a historical point of view and so forth. But, yeah, Cleveland's going to be a fun team to watch. The Bills. Goodness, the Bills are going to be entertaining.
I'm a big Stephon Diggs fan, and with that Josh Allen Stephon Diggs combo right now, they could potentially be Super Bowl contenders.
A lot of people have been saying that. They have really, really progressed over the last 5 years where, 5-6 years ago is Tyrod Taylor, and now they've really become a team that people take very seriously because they went from non-contenders to fringe playoff contenders to all of a sudden they're this bona fide team with a lot of pieces, and then teams see the Bills on the schedule and they take them very, very seriously on a number of levels. So it's going to be very entertaining to see what they can do in the playoffs. They played well last season.
And I think from another team standpoint, if you can shut down that passing, they don't have the most amazing run game. And that's something they definitely need to work on if they want to keep these Super Bowl chances odds.
Absolutely. Well, Henry, any other sports you've been looking at, paying attention to in the last few weeks?
I've really been a lot about soccer, and you'll get to know this about me, but soccer's my favorite sport, and I follow pretty much everything soccer. So this weekend, the big news, obviously, with the Brazil-Argentina match, but also some of the other big World Cup qualifying matches. United States tied with Canada 1-1. I see you celebrating.
USA.
A huge situation because the star player Weston McKennie, one of the big ones, Weston McKennie, was not able to play. Apparently, it's something about COVID protocols, some sort of suspension. We don't really know yet. But that's why he wasn't able to play in the last game. He's also not going to be able to play on Thursday when the United States take on Honduras. And, it's a game that they have to win. And I say it because they're kind of on the line. They need to start winning some games. They need to start getting the 3 points so that they can move up in the standings, because they're kind of in the middle of the pack. They're not out, but they definitely want to secure a spot for the World Cup because they deserve it. They really deserve it with the squad they have put together. They've proven time and time again that they are one of, if not the best teams in CONCACAF. They've beaten Mexico at least 3 times this year, and it's this is their time to shine. I think if they don't make it to the World Cup, if they don't make it to the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, I am going to be disappointed because, by God, they deserve it. They deserve to make it.
What can you say makes them deserve it? Are these just good players all around?
They're great players. I mean, see, here's the thing, right? Go back 8 years, 2014. You didn't have a lot of American players in European leagues, right? You had maybe a few. But a lot of the big ones, Josie Altidore, Michael Bradley, they were stuck in MLS, weren't big names in Europe. But now you have Christian Pulisic, you have Gio Reyna, you've got Weston McKennie on Juventus. You've got a lot of big names that have suddenly moved out, and I think part of that is MLS isn't a retirement league anymore. It's more of a stepping off point, a stepping stone, I guess. Where you can use that to further your career. And a lot of big players have started moving out of MLS, going to Europe. And that's what we want to see, because American talent is suddenly, it's going out. And it's getting big names up in Europe, and that is what we want. So I think that's why they deserve it, because the players have worked hard. They've got a good team. I would really be shocked if they didn't make it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they're certainly thinking about what happened before the 2018 World Cup, and they don't want a repeat of that because, yes, this team is very, very talented. It's very different for an American team, and certainly they're going to hopefully do everything in their power to keep themselves not only in contention for the World Cup, but then make a very deep run in the World Cup, because this isn't, the U.S. team of 15, 20 years ago. This is a well-rounded team that doesn't have a lot of holes, but has, needs to get and make that next step to really prove it to the whole world stage. So I agree with that.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, I hope we make it. I mean, I will be very prideful if we do make this World Cup. Didn't realize we were so good. USA, baby, let's go.
Yeah, we'll see. They've got a few games to go, but I think they can make it. This game against Honduras is going to be a good match. I can feel it.
Okay, I'll have to tune in for this one.
All right.
Where the Premier League has been a whole mess this season. This has been a very bizarre season. Well, I guess the word mess would most apply if you're an Arsenal fan. I apologize to all my Arsenal friends out there, but it's not the fans' fault. This is another example of an ownership group that has made bizarre decision after bizarre decision. I would know I'm a Newcastle fan, but the Arsenal fans must be absolutely, they have 0 points in 3 matches right now. This is a team that should be, of course, nowhere near relegation, but it should, of course, be a top 6 team. But this is indicative of something where the ownership, decides to do certain things with their money that makes no sense for either the club, for the players, or the fans. And now this is what you're seeing. The ownership is reaping what they were sowing with this. I know it's only been 3 matches, but goodness, for a team like Arsenal, which is perpetually a top 6 team, to now be at the bottom of the table after 3 matches is not something that I'm sure they're proud of. And to add insult to injury, their chief rivals, Tottenham Hotspur, are now at the top of the table after 3 matches, and have really, really become a dynamic team. Which, 5 years ago, they had a team that got very close to winning the league, but what happened is they didn't expand after that. Well, now they're starting to get some young players in, and hopefully, they will start spending even more money, because there was a period where I think 3 transfer windows Tottenham didn't spend a penny, but now, things are starting to look a lot better for Tottenham. Of course, West Ham somewhat of a surprising team, but at the same time, they played really well last year. I think they have a lot of talented players who are a little bit under the radar, some who are right on the radar. And so that's a team that, even though, again, after only 3 matches, they should seriously be looked at as a possible top 6 contender again. So then Brentford, of course, is the newly promoted team who surprised a lot of fans with a win earlier this season. Right now, they're winning 2 draws, but this is a very exciting team where the ownership is doing the exact opposite of what Arsenal is doing and really investing not only in the club in terms of players, but really the fans. They have a wonderful stadium. They have a really good set of players who have been loyal, but also really, really committed to the team being promoted. And so this is what we're seeing is a very strange dynamic with these traditionally smaller clubs owned by people with a lot of money who are doing more in terms of investing than these mega clubs owned by also rich people who are just not really spending the money as wisely as they should. So it's a very interesting dynamic that has been developing, and because it really started with Leicester City. Leicester City had been a Premier League level team in the 90s, and then they went back down into the second and third tiers, but then they got bought by the Thai consortium, and now, after building their way back up through the third and second tiers, got to the Premier League, won, 2015-16, and now they're a solid team. They won the FA Cup, and they made Champions League, and this is a team that nobody thought would ever come close to that, but this is what happens when you have ownership that actually invests. So hopefully, for the sake of the Premier League, Arsenal's owners will wake up and then be able to invest in this team in a very different way, because there are certain things in sports where, the whole sport as a whole does not benefit from a particular team not doing well. And I think Arsenal is a team that not only is so historical in the Premier League, but is also one of the more marketable teams out there. And in terms of, name recognition, is right up there with Manchester United. You don't want Arsenal in the second tier of English football. So this is very important for ownership to look at that and try to do as much as they can to fix the situation.
It's a very, very interesting. Do you guys want to talk about Messi while we're on the topic of soccer? I was holding that in, and I had to say it at some point. Messi with PSG, how do we feel?
My gosh, what a team. Honestly, what a team. I don't even know how the owner's rich. That's how. But I don't know how they got
have that much money.
It kind of feels like he's playing FIFA, But seriously, I'm interested to see that team. Obviously, Kylian Mbappé got injured with the French team, so we're probably not going to see that combo go off for a little bit. But Messi, he did good on his debut, and I'm looking forward to see him do some more of that Messi stuff. He's got a good team, so I could definitely see them being the champions this time, not getting it stolen by Leo.
Wow.
Yeah, and Ronaldo now back with Manchester United after all these years.
All right.
And of course, as luck would have it, they faced Newcastle, my team, in his debut.
Sorry for your loss.
And just fingers crossed there won't be a hat trick, but it'll be entertaining for all of the soccer, and for everyone around the world to see that back where he grew his talents in England and became a world known name. For him to be back at Manchester United is really great for the sport. And again, it's also going to be really interesting to see how he plays with the new generation of players. This is going to be totally different from the Wayne Rooneys and the Giggs of the world and the Scholes. This is a totally different generation, which also speaks to how impressive his talent level is. For Ronaldo to have been around, literally 20 years now, playing at the top level of the sport in different countries is incredible. So it will be entertaining. It's just a matter of how much he's going to torture other teams is going to be a debate. It's the degree to which he does it. So, yeah, that'll be fascinating. But lots and lots of great sporting events happening in the next few weeks. Again, we've talked about NFL, MLB playoffs coming up. KSU sports are going to continue to be going on. So, anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap things up?
Little quick, exciting news. If you are an Atlanta Hawks fan, Clint Capella did sign a 2-year extension. Just wanted to throw that one out there. Nice, good center for you guys. For us, I don't know why I say you guys. For us, I think the Hawks are definitely going to do well. I just wanted to throw that little news in there, as I was excited. So I'm sure there's plenty of people who are excited about it.
Sounds good.
I've got nothing. I mean, I think we've covered everything.
All right. Well, thank you everybody here at Kennesaw for listening to the Owl Hour. This is our first stream. We do apologize for the technical difficulties in the beginning of our broadcast. We hope that we have been able to inform you a bit about KSU and about world sports and entertain you to some degree. We promise that. I promise that we will improve upon this show and we'll have less technical difficulties next time. But for now, this has been Rio White with Henry Higuita and Devon Delarm saying